Hi, it's Michael here once again from Cards by MCAT. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and one of my favouriteest DSPs to date in my short career with Stampin' Up has been the On Horizon set. Now, I've gone online and I've found a number of examples of cards to make with the paper on the I'm going to just say the front side of the DSP paper. However, I didn't see a lot of examples of cards using the reverse side. Let me show you what I mean. This is the reverse side, where it's quite monochromatic. And I wanted to see what could be done with the reverse side of the DSP and some examples of that. Let me show you what I've done today. Like most of us, I've been able to capture a scene using various stamps and creating a landscape with the front side of the DSP, if I can use that term, where what looks like the sky, the ground, and then stamping in some trees, example, adding some birds, even adding some extra color to create that landscape, fences, grasses, etc. And grasses that bend, obviously. Some wildflowers in the foreground, some trees in the background. So pretty well much what other people have done with the DSP. However, let me show you a couple of examples of what I've done in a monochromatic sense on the reverse side of the DSP. Here's two examples here. So it's the reverse side of the DSP, and in these examples I've used the green in this case, and in this other example, I don't know that I have another example of the red. I think I've used it all up. However, you get the sense, or you get an idea of what I'm talking about here. So I think we can create monochromatic tones or landscapes using the reverse side of the DSP, and I'd like to share with you an example of that. So let's put those aside and let me show you the purple, what we can do to create that. Now, what I tend to do is, using some past work as an example, I tend to take the DSP and I cut it in half. The reason I do that is it just allows me to add a bit more texture and interest to the card, if you like. So I cut it in half, so it's 6x6 in the original state, and then I cut it down into a 3x3 state. Now I'm going to use this well, it's not exactly this landscape, but it is this color tone, and I think it's called the Blackberry Bliss. So let me show you what I've done here to date. I've taken this piece here and I've cut it in half. Here it was in its original state. I've taken that and I've cut it in half, and what I do is I try to picture what a landscape might look like, whether it's this way, whether it's in reverse. I try to imagine what the landscape would look like. And in this example, what I'm going to do, having cut this piece in half, I'm going to use this one. So let's remove that. And to help me out with this, I tend to go back to two old favorites. One is the On The Horizon stamp set, utilizing these trees if I'm trying to depict a eucalypt or such, and this grass scene. I also explore this grass set here. I use that a lot. The dies from this set. So you'll see those featured heavily. You will also see featured heavily the fence posts. Now, what I've done in the past with these fence posts is mostly remove the paper from the previous exercise. What I tend to do to give a more textured finish to the cards, you may not be able to see that, but you will be able to see this on this example here. I take the fence post and I run it through this embossing folder. And the embossing folder is the I don't know what it's called. It's a tree, the timber embossing folder, if you like. I'll emboss a piece of cardstock, and then what I will do is I will cut it out using this. So you get a bit of a textured timber look on your fence posts. So nothing new there, but I tend to prepare all the various pieces of support ingredients, if you like, in advance to give me an idea. So with this one, what we're going to do, I've got some fence posts. Now, Blackberry Bliss is the color used in the On The Horizon. What I've done is I've cut these out of rich raspberry, a slightly lighter color. It helps to give a bit of contrast, and you can see in this case here's a rich raspberry and the Blackberry Bliss is the color referenced in the DSP. So let me show you what it looks like. I've taken, the other stamp set I do use is Grassy Grove. Now I love the trees here. There's also the trees in this one, the foliage, and also the foliage and I suppose earth, if you like. There's no other dyes that I use from this set. However, let me show you what it looks like. So I mentioned I used the trees from Grassy Grove, and here they are here. I have taken the liberty to start this process a little bit to keep things moving in the essence of time. And I took that stamp set and the DSP, and I thought, what can I do with that? So what you can see I've done, I've cut it in half, and I've imagined that this is the night sky, and I've just stamped liberally with the pine trees. You'll see in my previous example, I've tended to use these trees from Grassy Grove to create a eucalyptus scene. And in this case, the way I've stamped it, it looks like it's rolling up a hill. And interestingly enough, what I've done here with this one, I used the top of these trees to create this foliage set. So in doing that, what I did was just stamped the top of the tree and then dabbed it like this. Now you'll notice there's a green and there is a browny tone. So really the two colors that I've used there, soft suede and evening evergreen are the two colors that I've used in this one. Evening evergreen being one of the colors in the DSP from On The Horizon. So let me just clear the deck a little bit. So what I've done here is I've stamped liberally some pine trees, and now what I'm going to do is bring out my fence posts. Now I don't necessarily need to use 2 fence posts, but I'm just starting, before I do any more stamping, I'm just starting to see what the vision might look like if I bring in my fences, whether I use both or just a singular fence. And I'm trying to create, where possible, I'm trying to create a pathway so that it leads the viewer's eye into the scene. And if I join the fence together, then I'm kind of creating a barrier. But if I open it up a little bit, I'm creating a sense of welcome, or a sense of walking through, if that makes sense. And I'll just show you what I've done with this one here. So I've kind of opened it up and created a bit of a sense of a pathway leading through to it. So I'm trying to do the same thing with this here, and in doing so I'm trying to position these posts in a way that there's no other trees behind it. See, if I do it like that, I'm kind of blocked in vision a bit like that. So, and I'm also now going to, I mentioned I use the grasses from On The Horizons. I'll just bring that die out and show you what I mean. And on this occasion, it doesn't want to come out. And here it is here. So what I've done here, I've die cut both Blackberry Bliss and Rich Raspberry. And I'm trying to see how I can, with a bit of tone here, Does that look right? Yes. And it doesn't matter that the fence post doesn't come right to the edge, and to alleviate that sort of missing post, if you like, I'm going to take the foliage over the edge. And then I'm going to see how this looks. Line this post up with this tree, and we might start the foliage either here or start the foliage here perhaps, to give a sense of texture. I think it's just a bit too busy, so what I'm going to do, I think, doing something that I have done in the past, I'm going to bring in some foliage, and I'm going to that might be too big. Let's bring in the other stamp set from Grassy Grove. And doing what I've done before, let's bring in Rich Razzleberry. Now, I'm not using a stamp block in this case. I'm going to just use the edge of my fingers, gently trying not to get a halo. There we go. And I'm just going to stamp under here. That's right. Just stamping under the crests of the trees to create a sense of foliage. It would have been sensible if I grab a sheet of paper and put it in the background, so let me just quickly do that now. Okay. So now what we've done, we've brought the scene alive a bit. We've created some foliage. Now, even though we may have blocked off the pathway a little bit, we can still create a sense, if I have the fence up the right way. Let's see what it looks like here. It's still a bit of a welcoming path. And if we want to continue that welcoming path scene, let's see what that looks like. And bring in, that's the darker color, that's the Blackberry Bliss. This is the lighter one here. I think that might work. Now, one thing that I haven't shared with you is the length of the card. I chopped mine down to around about 115 millimeters. So in saying that, I'm now looking to see what 115 millimeters might look like. So if I'm taking 115, I need to bring it down to about here. And I'll be chopping off at about this point. Okay, so as you can see, very technical in my measurements. I'm going to use this as my guide. And here it is here. So that's how much I've got to play with. So let me go and cut that off right now, so we have a true sense of what we've got to work with. Okay, there it is there. The essence of order, moving that aside. Now, let's revisit where we are. Okay, and you can see now we've got some opportunity for some more grasses to lead into there. So what I'm going to do there is I am going to mount this stamp onto a block. I'm now going to stamp it up, and I'm going to bring in some more foliage into the foreground. Now, what I've done there, effectively by doing that, is I've created an entrance path here. So it could be what I do is open the scene up, or open the entrance up here for my viewer's eye to come through and explore this. Now, I'm not fussed whether I bring the fence posts down, and I can chop them off to accommodate that new entrance point, like thus. I think the important thing is to recognize that it's up to you as a developer where you create the visitor's eye to enter into the pathway. Now, I think I'm going to go with something like this. Now, these extra pieces that I'm going to cut those off and use them. So let me show you what I do next as my next part of the process. I've reduced the height of the fence. Scissors, enter stage right. I'm going to chop these off now, like so. Okay, and I'm going to glue that, and I'm not going to glue when the glue decides to pull. I do have a pin here that I use to unblock the glue. Okay. Now, where's my post? Okay. So what I'm going to do... Oh, too much. Okay. So I'm just gluing down to this section here, like so. And I use a cotton bud liberally for my gluing exercises because I want to reduce the amount of glue that may seep out of from underneath my work. Okay, now what I do is this. There's a little bit of glue that I don't want showing when it dries, even though it does dry clear. Here we go. Okay, and the reason I don't dry all the way to the top of the fence post, as you may have seen, is it allows me to create some texture in bending the posts. Because as you can imagine, a set of posts out in the wild, it's not going to be totally perfect. Now we had, yes, I think that's right there. So once again, into scissors, stage right, and we're going to deftly remove those elements from the fence. And I know it ended there, and I'm going to, there we go. Okay, once again, excellent. Now apply the glue as we did before, sparingly. Yeah. Voila. Okay. Now the scene is starting to take place. We've got texture, we've got movement. In terms of movement, what I'd like to see here, as with all of my cards, I like to incorporate some birds. These birds here are actually from heron habitat. That's these two birds here. I think any sort of bird is fine. The ones I'm going to use are the ones from On The Horizon. And I'll look at where I place those in a moment. Let's just focus a little bit more on the foliage. Yes, I like the texture here. I like the contrast of colour. It's subtle, but we do have a contrast, which I like. There we go. It's over the edge of the paper, which I like. Okay, so let's apply that sparingly, of course. Okay. Yes, okay. Now, I'm going to bring this to slightly, so that was the Blackberry Bliss. The grass here is Blackberry Bliss, but this grass is, in fact, what I might do, yes, I'm going to use this bit of cut off around the edge a little bit. There we go. And that'll take it through nicely there. Okay. Do I need any other grass? Let me just quickly check. Will there be any value add there? Yes. Okay, so there is something to be gained by using scissors. And I'm just going to add this to the front of that. It's around there. Okay. Once again, a little bit of glue. There we go. Okay. Right, and now let's apply this sparingly, if I can. There we go. Okay. Well, simple, but I think in part effective. Now, the birds fly at that hour of night because it does look like a starry sky at night, doesn't it? Let's clear off some of this excess. Okay. Well, I'd like to think birds do fly at night. Now, let me just find where I put the birds from the On The Horizon set, and here they are. And I'd like to think, when I get them up the right way, I'd like to think birds will fly at night in this scene. Now, to enhance the effect, I think I need to go with Memento Black for the birds. Nicely stamped. And in this setting, I think the bird's going to fly off in this direction. Yes, because I want to keep these stars exposed. And there we go. Voila. I think that's good. Okay. Okay. Now, what else do we need to add to that? Normally what I do with these monochromatic cards is I tend to set them onto a base with a background that has been embossed. And the green one I can show you also has been embossed with the same embossing folder. And then I tend to use, I think it's crumb cake as the base. So I'm going to do that there. But you can see here we've used totally different fence scenes. These ones. And in actual fact, as I look at this here, what I'm seeing is I'm really at eye level here, looking through this scene. This one, I feel like I'm elevated looking down into this scene. And with this one here, I suppose I'm at eye level, but I've achieved that just, I suppose, just from placement with the image. Okay, so let's move to pulling the whole thing together. I'll emboss some, I think it's going to be rich raspberry, and I'll get some crumb cake and we'll finalize that one and put a sentiment on. Now, while we're off camera, I took the liberty to do a couple of things. I've cut the piece of crumb cake. All of my cardstock for a bifold is around about 13 centimeters by 21 centimeters. I can see I need a new fresh blade here. A bit of pilling. However, I've cut a piece of card base. I've also embossed with the time-worn type embossing folder a piece of the Blackberry Bliss, which I'm going to use to mount our image onto. So let me just quickly do that. Okay, and there's the piece of glue that we all dread. So I'll just get my trusty cotton bud out. So it pays to always adhere, place the glue not right to the edge, like I've obviously done, and in this case I've mounted all of these in the center. However, I have on occasion mounted these diagrams and I'm using these over to the left or to the right, and I don't have one at hand to oh yes I do. In this case you can see that I have mounted them slightly to the left of this. However, in this case they're moving to the center. Now I have, from the framed florets set, I'm using Wishes for a Beautiful Birthday. However, let me show you something. I'm going to stamp this onto some white cardstock, which I have here. Okay, as I stamp this up with a halo on the edge of the block. Everything I shouldn't do, and I'm going to redo that again. There's something on the block. I find of all the colors that I get everywhere, it's this color. Right, isn't that just fabulous? Let me give that a good clean. Okay, last try. That's better. Not perfect, but it's better. But I'm going to, what I do a lot of is this. I tend to fussy cut my sentiments for no particular reason. I just like the look. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Now my little puppy has just come into the craft space and is now under my feet, biting my ankles. But, okay, if I was to place that here, it's a bit overwhelming. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to remove the wishes part, because I think the sentiment stands alone just as well without it. For a beautiful birthday. Let me just do a little bit of, there we go. And the additional thing that I tend to do, which is not to everyone's liking, but it suits my modus operandi, okay, is I will burnish the edge. And for me, texture plays an important part in the development of a card. And I like the way burnishing creates another element. Now, it's not a perfect finish, but for me, it helps it to stand up off the page. And you can see that here and here. Now, I'm going to mount that with some dimensionals. Two very simple dimensionals on the back. There we go. Now, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I gave this card to somebody with that on the back. However, for the purpose of this exercise, I still want to project or to capture the landscape. Okay, so here we have the finished product. I've placed the sentiment down here. I've added some bling. The last thing I'm going to do is just quickly add the insert. Now I add the insert for two reasons. One, to give the card some weight, because I find when you've weighted up the card base with a couple of layers of card, if the inside is not supported also with some card, then it feels unweighted. Now I don't mind adding it the same color. I will add a stamp to the inside here, and the stamp I'm going to add is probably going to come from the On The Horizon set. Yes, I'm going to use this stamp set simply because it kind of leans itself nicely to the foliage and all that. It's a very simple addition, but I like it. Now I'll usually stamp the insert before I add it to the card. And that's normally because on a number of occasions I've added it and something has gone awry with the insert and it's caught me undone. So there it is, simple insert, stamp, and then a simple dab of glue. We'll see this put aside and finished. If I can pick it up easily enough. And here we go. Voila. Card finished. Okay, so for those of you who were struggling to find what to do with the insert, or the reverse side, I should say, of the On The Horizon DSP, here's one example that you might want to consider. All right, I will try and use the midnight blue when my card stock arrives. I think it's midnight blue. Misty moonlight. I'll give the blue a go. But there you go. 3 monochromatic cards using the reverse side of the DSP. I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.